How to get around Europe, there is so many different options. The best thing about Europe is that it is actually really easy to get around from all the different countries.
We've tried a lot and we love a lot. There's basically so many options.
You've got your train, you've got driving yourself and hiring a car,
boats, buses,
flying. I'll quickly run through our experience of each so it'll give you guys a better idea when planning your trip. My absolute favourite way of getting around Europe is train. I love sitting on the train. It's usually pretty comfortable. You can do work, or you can watch a movie, or you can look at all the beautiful scenery. What do you think of train?
I really like train. For the most part, train's my favourite way too. One of, I guess, I'm sure you're the same, probably my favourite reason why I like trains and probably prefer trains a lot of the time to buses is that you're on them and they go. I know that sounds silly, but buses are with the trains, there's fast trains, there's slow trains, there's trains in between. So if you just do one quick search, always do a couple of searches unless you know the type of trains of that country. Do a couple of searches because quite often you may find that a regional train might take 6 hours, but then there's a faster version which will get you there in an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So it's really there's a couple of great sources. Man in Seat 61 we find is a great way.
Is amazing.
I think that's probably hands down the best train source.
Yeah, and then I just love looking at individual booking websites for trains. So in France you've got, I think it's SCNF or SNCF. I always love, it was called Captain Train, but now I think it's just called Train Line. I'll link all these below and the article as well where we go into a bit more detail. And for Italy, I always look at Trenitalia, which has all the local train prices and things. So train is perfect for Europe and the train system is pretty good. The only thing where train might not be good for is in certain countries where other options are better. And also if your itinerary calls for you to be from one part of Europe to the other part of Europe, it might be multiple trains and multiple days to get there, which I'd still love to do that. But if you need to get there quickly,
you can fly.
You can fly. So that's probably our next option is flying. We've only done one flight, I think, within Europe.
No, we've done a few. We've done the flights between Greece.
Okay,
we've done from
we have two.
Italy to Croatia.
This year we did Rome to Dubrovnik, so Italy to Croatia, because it was just quicker and easier to fly, and it was relatively cheap as well. Yeah. And then you're right. So our previous Europe trip, we also had to fly just around the Greek islands.
Yeah, where did we fly from?
We flew from Rhodes to Athens to Santorini.
Yeah.
And so train wasn't the best option for us then. And we did a short 1 hour flight to get from Rome to Dubrovnik.
But at the same time, a 1 hour flight means so much more than a 1 hour flight. You still got to get to the airport with X amount of minutes before your flight. If you check luggage, you got to wait for your luggage. Even if you don't, there's still time associated with leaving an airport.
Going through immigration and all that sort of stuff. So it does. Just remember, if you see like this 1 hour flight versus say a 5 hour train, I would probably almost always go the train.
Well, funny you said 5 hours because that was probably going to be my tipping point.
Yeah.
Because trains in particular, I've found are pretty well located to the main places.
Yeah.
And if they're not, you can then connect to a local train to where you need to go.
Yeah.
So they're normally pretty well set out for you.
So basically, on a train, you might leave in the city centre and arrive in the city centre, whereas on a plane, the airport might actually be another 45 minutes or hour out of town from where you need to get to. So just remember all those things when you're planning.
Touch the ground and it feels like I can see the sands on the horizon every time you are not around. Slowly drifting away, wave after wave, wave after wave. Slowly.
Some places in Europe are just so much better to explore if you're driving a car. Some of them you can't actually do trains or buses. So we've hired cars in Provence in France, in Tuscany in Italy, and in the Greek islands. So yeah, Mykonos, Santorini. Is that about it? I think there's one other place.
Yeah, there is one other place.
Anyway, we've hired cars in certain areas like islands, so we can explore and do our own thing and not just be stuck on a bus to get from A to B. So islands are great places to hire a car. Usually they have quieter traffic as well, which is great if you're a bit nervous about that. Tuscany was another area where we could not have seen what we saw if we didn't get a car.
Definitely.
Same with Provence, I guess. You just couldn't see those things if you didn't hire a car.
If you are going to be driving, you're going to need to read up on a couple of different signs, symbols and stuff like that. And if you are going there for a relaxing holiday, it might take away from that a bit.
Yeah, but I can see more and you want to see that area, and the only way to do that is by car, then that's when you kind of need to make the call. If I'm going to this area, then there's no point going there unless I hire a car.
Mandy is about to start driving. I'm very nervous. Wish us luck.
Where trains may not be the best option. For example, at the moment we're in Croatia and we've done majority buses. They do have the trains, but the bus system here works really, really well, and that's what the country is really set up for. So buses have worked great here.
Well, so far in Croatia, I don't think, we plan on getting on a train.
Yes, we are going to get on a train from Zagreb to Slovenia.
But so far we've only done boats and buses.
Yes. Yeah, so I mean that's completely different to what we've experienced in Europe before. So the last main option is boats and ferries, that sort of thing. Obviously this is mostly useful going around, if you plan to go around islands.
It probably is the most obvious way.
Yeah, but like I said with Greece, not always, like don't think because you're going to islands that you're just going to be on a boat all the time. Because in Greece in particular, depending where you choose, it might actually be quicker and cheaper and easier to get flight, which you don't necessarily think when you think of the Greek islands.
Well, when we were looking, that definitely wasn't our first look. We were looking at different ways to get around with using the ferries.
Yeah.
And a couple of them really would not have been our best options.
No. So, I mean, you've just got to consider that. But ferries we have been on around the Greek islands, and they were all fine. Then recently we've done boats around the Croatian islands, and they were all really, really easy. And the Croatian islands, I actually found were a lot closer to each other than what the Greek islands were, or at least the ones I went to, because there's a lot of different islands, obviously. So consider that too when you're planning a trip, how long does it take to get in between everywhere, and what's your best option. But our experience with ferries have been pretty good in Europe so far.
Yep.
So basically you can get around Europe so many different ways. It just really depends on your specific itinerary, what you want to do and what you want to get out of your holiday. So do some quick searches, compare some prices. My biggest tips would be if you book early, you are more than likely going to get cheaper prices, particularly when it comes to trains. Trains versus rail, like individual tickets for trains versus rail passes. Rail passes are not always the cheapest option. Again, it depends on your itinerary. Do a quick search and do a comparison of the prices.
We can see our comparison that we did from our previous Europe trip.
Like below, we'll link all the train companies, bus companies, ferry companies, all that sort of stuff that we've used within the article, so you can do a quick search for them and try and price it out a little bit.
I think the key that we always try and incorporate into planning anything in Europe is keep an open mind when it comes to transport. If you're used to flying everywhere, I'm not saying that flying isn't a good option or even the best option in a lot of cases, but always keep an open mind. The same if you, like Mandy, love trains to bits and want to get trains everywhere, well...
Even if it's like 3 days, I'm like, no, we can do this on a train.
This conversation has been had. But...
Which, if you have the time, is a really nice way to do it, and maybe you pick a couple of stops off on the way and you see some different places to what you first expected you would see.
I think when it comes to Europe travel, keep an open mind. I guess prioritise in terms of countries, because you never know, you might have 6 countries you want to go to, but that might completely change when you start trying to figure out which countries you want to
how to get around
between them.
On that note, also when you're booking a flight in and out of Europe, maybe have a think about if you can fly into one country and fly out of another, so that you don't need to make your way back to that point at the end of your trip if it's not making sense. So that's another thing as well that can save you another leg of transport.
Yeah, no backtracking.
Yeah. But again, if you're doing like a loop, that's fine. It might actually be beneficial.
It depends on the trip.
Yeah. If you're doing, say, France and Spain and Portugal, it doesn't mean you need to do France first, then do Spain, and then do Portugal. It might actually make more sense to do like this side of France and then go down and do Portugal and a bit of Spain and then come back up and do the other side of France. So I guess what I'm saying is you might actually go in and out of the same country, because that might make more sense. Our top tips for how to get around Europe: it's such a great place to actually travel because it is so easy to get around, beautiful scenery, lots of options. You can read in the link below about all our experiences with all the different types of travel and what we recommend. In Monaco, you had 2 or 3
Yeah, quite a few.
photography shots. Already up to 1 today.